This is coming from gamesindustry.biz. So PlayStation 5 owners prefer boxed games to downloads. So this is coming back to, I think, a discussion we had a little while ago about physical versus digital collections. So this is coming from James Batchelor at gamesindustry.biz. He writes, PlayStation 5 owners prefer boxed games to downloads. For the PS5's first 10 months, GSD data shows 3 physical titles were sold for every 2 digital. So PlayStation fans across Europe and beyond heavily favor retail for their game purchases, with more than 10 million box games sold in the console's first 10 months on sale. The figures come from the global sales data presentation at GI Live London last month, where the firm's video games consultant Sam Nagy took a deeper look at the console's cumulative sales from its launch in November to the end of August 2021. GSD tracks full game box sales from 23 countries and digital sales from 49 and covers all the major publishers. The company found that the retailers consistently outsold digital, with 51% more box games sold than downloads by the end of August. November 2020 was the only month where the game downloads have outperformed retail sales at 950,000 units compared to 840,000 units. After this, the PS5's retail games have consistently outsold digital every month. And the gap has widened over time. In December 2020, 5 retail games were sold for every 4 downloads. By the end of August, this had increased to 3 box games for every 2 digital. In total, 10.4 million box games were sold for PS5 between launch and the end of August, December, January, June, and August all saw more than 1 million games sold within the month. Meanwhile, 7.5 million digital games were sold during that same period, and no single month saw more than 1 million sales. Adam, does this surprise you at all?
No, because I think I have a counter to why that is.
Why?
So if I'm understanding, it's actually getting a wider gap between box and digital?
Mm-hmm. Slightly, not drastically.
Well,
I think
yeah,
it's actually...
but the gist is that it went from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2, which is a bigger gap.
So they said the gap has widened over time. In December 2020, 5 retail games were sold for every 4 downloads. Mm-hmm. By the end of August, this had increased to 3 box games for every 2 digital.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bigger gap when you talk percentage points. The reason I think that actually might not be a win for box games is because I don't know if that entire study is covering Game Pass or services like that. Mm-hmm. Because it might just be tracking full digital downloads versus full retail purchases. Which my brain goes, well, yeah, that makes sense because the physical buyers aren't changing their minds, but the digital buyers now have 2 ways of getting their content. So it may be possible, not the digital is maybe like loosening their grip so much as it's just that specific route might not be. Now, at the same time, too, I really have to study the thing more. And I'm not trying to like defend digital here. I'm just more like trying to get a little bit more of like,
you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, I know where you're going with it. I also wonder what the places that they used were for studies, because again, we got to keep in mind too, like digital is increasing, but it also is limited based on people's internet possibilities. There is no way that you're going to be spending a lot of money on digital downloads if it's going to take you like a full day to download that game that you want, when you could just go across the street or drive 5 to 10 minutes to your local shop and get it there for almost the same price. And you're going to get it in, I don't know, a couple hours at most, rather than a full day's worth, depending on your connection. I still think there's mitigating factors that would say that we're still at a point that physical is going to win over. And I think, when it comes to digital, the statistics being that, well, again, internet connections. And like I said, and I don't know if this is actually the case or not, but I feel like Game Pass probably isn't included in this, because how do you track that? Mm-hmm. You really can't. It really just comes down to, like, I think we're at a point that it's probably even Stevens. It's just, there's just that extra data that you can't account for. And then on top of that, I think we'll have this in agreement. Who really cares which is winning as long as both options still exist in the end, right?
100%. I'm completely with you there. For me,
it's obviously personal preferencing.
It is, yeah. I still think that the digital represents a better value for players. I mean, make your own choice, whatever you want to do. But for me, like, I think physical is still the better situation. Like, we're looking at the Black Friday sales that are going on, and I'm looking at stuff at like GameStop, and the prices there are better than what's currently on the PlayStation Store. Like, even for their own games, like I'm seeing like a price difference there. So it's interesting that like if you went that digital route, if you went that digital only console, you're locked to that store and they can charge whatever the hell they want. The other aspect is with going physical is I have options of purchasing. I'm not having to buy it from one particular store, and that allows me to kind of shop around. And so the other aspect is that one, I think one of the sales is that if you get a PlayStation for your birthday, Christmas, whatever, people are going to be getting you games, accessories. Like it's easy when you're there to buy that console that you're also going to pick up some games, and you're going to have, family and friends who would probably want to do the same thing for you as well. It's a lot easier to go to an EB Games and buy a physical copy than it is to buy a access card for X amount of money to buy the game. I think the other thing too is that people want to have that control over their physical library, right? One of the problems with the digital is that it is tied to your account. And I've seen stories on Reddit where people are like, my account got locked out, my account got banned, and now I don't have access to my games. Whereas I have a whole library of games, and no matter what Sony does, I can't lose that collection. And so, well, I mean, it's physical, it can burn down or anything, but no one can choose to say, hey, that collection is now worthless.
Yeah, I think that needs to be fixed. Like, if your account gets banned, it should still say, okay, you're banned from online play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, any online services you're banned from, but you should still be able to play anything that's in your account. Like, it shouldn't just... And if it's got to be a full account ban, then it should be you should be giving that same person a reference number, being like, hey, use this link, this will sign you a new account so you can just offline access all the games that are in your account. I don't think it's fair, unless the reason you're banning the account is through piracy issues or things of like them like hacking into the store and getting stuff. But if it's literally like banned accounts for just being a dick in games, like that kind of ban or stuff, or like just being like a toxic human being, I don't think you should be losing the money that you have. I think that's kind of, as much as like I'd love to see people that are real assholes online get their comeuppance, I think at the same time they should still be allowed to at least enjoy the games that, they're supposed to be enjoying, because banning them completely from these things might actually make them even worse off than they were going out. So yeah, you got to be careful with that.
I just think it's that fact of the control and the lack of, and I mean, I know there's the whole argument, like you don't really own your games, blah, blah, blah. Like I still have that physical copy disc that I can then sell to somebody else if I choose to.
There is that too. Like there always is the resale value. Now with the store, the amount, like I imagine GameStop, having lower prices. I think it's pretty obvious why, because they're so dead from the pandemic screwing them over, and they need reasons for people to come in the stores. People have become very accustomed now to just buying digital, so I think they almost have to be like $5 or $10 below just to try to get people in the store and maybe to buy more. And then on top of that, to go with our conversation that we did a few weeks ago with like the prices on digital, Demon's Souls hit 40 plus or 43%. Like that is just an example. So it's clear that again, you give it enough time, those baby steps are occurring. So I think back to our previous conversation, it might just be that the process might be slower, or we're forgetting because, in the heat of the moment, you kind of forget how long it takes for games to really hit below price.
Well, I think for me, like I look at the thing with the PlayStation Store, and Xbox is a little bit different because they got the whole Game Pass thing, but like, you still have the Xbox Store. Like the thing I'm seeing is that you are currently still in a situation where you are in competition with, Best Buy, EB Games, all that kind of stuff, and you're not being competitive in a situation where, let's say, down the road it becomes a digital only experience. Once that competition's gone, what's going to be the incentive to even lower the games at that point? I feel like if you were wanting to see if PlayStation and Xbox were going to be competitive with their digital only collections, this would be the time that you see it, when they're trying to incentivize you to move away from that digital copy. And I'm frankly not seeing it now, and I don't know. I think there is a possibility of a digital future, but I don't see it being anytime soon, and I don't see it being this generation.
And that's perfectly fine. I don't think we should want it to go in any direction. Like personally,
no, but clearly,
where we're at, I think this is the best scenario. Unless we have somewhere down the road we can find another option entirely and add to it, sure. But like, if this is what it's going to be for the rest of gaming, fuck it. That's not the worst case scenario. You have options.
No, I think having the options is great.
I think people like, and neither of us are in this camp, but there are people that are like, oh, let's just get rid of physical. Who cares about physical copies? And then you get the people that be like, no, you're going to get screwed if we go digital only. Like, no, we should just be sticking to physical, because at least then I can have something tangibly. It's like, or we do everything. And people have the choice.
Why not both?
I know.
Like the old El Paso commercial.
It's so simple. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm literally only doing digital mostly because it's convenience, and you're doing it because you like having your physical copies, you like having the ability to sell them when you want, and everything else.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really neat is that like you and I think we're both in the same mind. Neither one of us is trying to say get rid of the other, but it's interesting that we're both on the opposite ends of the fence.
Except get Game Pass, because it's still a steal of a deal. Just do it.
Oh, Game Pass is still the best deal in gaming.